Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for January 29th, 2024. Well, as this month begins the wind down process, we have a huge week ahead of us in earnings data, economic data that could move the market substantially. So hopefully you had a good restful weekend, because this is going to be a wild one. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. Last night we had Asian markets mostly higher. Only Shanghai just down just a little tiny bit after we heard that Evergrande shares were halted as the Hong Kong court orders one of their largest property developers into liquidation. So we'll want to keep an eye on that, but modestly higher in most areas of Asian markets last night. If we take a look at Europe this morning, Europe is kind of along the flat line and mixed. We have just a little bit of a mix going in here, not feeling really bullish, not feeling really bearish at all. We'll want to keep an eye on that one as well. Remember, they hit some two-year highs over there, and maybe just feeling a little bit overextended at the moment. U.S. markets this morning are also just ever so slightly mixed, but the Dow's coming off the lows. In the normal move here in the market, first thing in the morning, lately it seems like all there is buy first thing in the morning. So Dow is coming well up off of its lows of the overnight. SPY and NASDAQ futures are just slightly higher. Let's take a look at oil this morning. Oil is moving up just a little bit. If you caught any of the news this weekend, Iran drone attack killing some U.S. troops, and the Biden administration is now vowing retaliation for this. So you'll want to be paying attention to that. The Red Sea situation is not getting better. It seems to be getting worse, and we'll want to watch those energy prices, and honestly any commodity or any product that typically moves through the Red Sea is likely going to see higher prices as a result of rising container costs. Let's take a look on bonds this morning. Bonds are just ever so slightly lower, which is interesting. Heading into, there must be tremendous confidence in what comes next in the FOMC meeting. We'll talk about that this morning, but bonds are moving just a tiny bit lower here this morning. So what does all this mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at some charts and see if we can gain a little bit of information about how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to shake off a little bit of bias here and just look at what could happen if the bulls find inspiration and if the bears find inspiration, so we can be prepared for the day. Well, first off, as you can see, the diamonds is a very bullish chart, holding in here above support, continuing to remain very strong, albeit maybe just a little bit overbought in a long term here. This has just been really stretched, but you gotta like this resting pattern in here. We're just resting a few days, and we could continue that pattern, except for the fact that we have just a huge amount of data coming our way this week that we'll want to be paying attention to. So if the bulls can find inspiration here today, and there's every reason they could, then there is blue sky above here in the market, meaning that there is no obvious resistance levels up there. That doesn't mean we can't fall from this area, but right now, no upside resistance in the diamonds. Now, if the bears were to find inspiration here today, We're going to look for this area here to serve as price support. If that price support were to fail, then just keep in mind there is pretty good fall that could happen in there point-wise to the next area of significant price support. Those are some big point moves that we're talking about here in the diamonds. And then you'll notice beyond that, we're likely coming back down here to this breakout area, which is the all-time high breakout this year on the diamonds. If we take a look at our SPY, SPY has been incredibly bullish. We continue to stretch and stretch and stretch in anticipation of the big tech reports. Now, let's keep in mind just a couple things here on what's been going on in analysts' exercise here heading into this big week of earnings. First off, a lot of the baseline earnings out there have had lowered estimates. Remember, there's all this conversation of the slowing economy, the possibility of a recession still lingers out there in the market, and so the analysts have lowered those expectations, meaning that there's a pretty good opportunity for some significant beats in just the average everyday stock out there. Now, that's not the same thing for big tech. Big tech giants have been enjoying so much bullishness, just incredible amount of bullishness. Those Magnificent Seven stocks are really priced to perfection and maybe even beyond, and we're not seeing those analysts lowering those estimates so much. So remember, if those big tech giants run into any kind of a problem at all, then we could see some pain from that here in the market. It will affect the SPY, the QQQ, just simply because of the massive weighting of these companies now within the indexes. If those Mag 7 really start to run into trouble, and I'm not saying they will, but if they were going to do that, just be prepared for that possibility that we could struggle here in the market. Now, taking a look at our SPY, you can see here in our SPY that we certainly have a very, very bullish chart, and there's just nothing in here that suggests anything different at the moment. Very, very strong. If we were to break through this resistance to the upside, just kind of keeping in mind there's blue sky above here in the SPY. Absolutely nothing up there in resistance on that chart, except maybe that possibility that we've kind of pushed this too far too fast. Now, that being said, if the bears were to find inspiration here, notice we've got a little bit of price support right in there and a pushback down through here. Unfortunately, there's not much of price support underneath that. So it could be a substantial move if it does pull back here in the SPY, and then breaking this level would probably take us back to this longer term upside trend that I've got going here in that chart. So watch that carefully. If we take a look at our QQQ, a little bit of maybe just some uncertainty in here. Notice we've created a little bit of an island up here. Now that island was pretty much filled on Friday where we popped up and pulled back, but we've got this two candles up here with a window up and a window down, creating that little bit of an island in here, telling us that we may be just a little bit on the overbought side here on this, and it's mostly the Mag 7 doing that. But that being said, if the bulls find inspiration right there, we could push up through there, and there's every reason to believe with the enthusiasm that we see in this market that we could push right up in there in anticipation of these earnings. So watch that carefully. And if the bears were to be inspired, notice there's a little bit of price support right in here on that range. If we were to slip below here, I want you to notice there's just not a lot of price support. I would say the only substantial price support is those two little days right in here that we could catch. Beyond that, that could be a pretty substantial fall if we were to find some bearish inspiration in the market. Certainly not suggesting that could occur, and that just brings us back to this trend. But the the point move would be pretty substantial, so be prepared for that. And then if we look at IWM, IWM doesn't benefit from any of the tech giants. None of the Meg 7 are in the Russell, and so we're lagging way behind here on IWM. Still struggling in this chart, long way from a big-time breakout here. Resting in this area of price support, you can see what I've got marked here is that downtrend line right here. And we broke through it, held it, and went up. I turned it green. We broke back down, held it as resistance. I turned it red. We've broke back above, and we're trying to hold. Let's see if it follows through. If this were to break this area here in the chart, then I'll turn this green again for that potential push to the upside to test some of these resistance levels higher. If the bears find that inspiration and we push back down through here, well, I'm going to keep that red, and then that possibility we could come back, test some support levels here in the chart on IWM. Russell continues to be kind of a straggler here because of the lack of the Mag 7 doing most of the work. Let's take a look at our VIX. It's interesting that our VIX on Friday popped up with a little bit of fear and then pulled all the way back. Big old dark cloud cover here in the chart. So what this may be actually is this may be a failure of this resistance area in the chart, and that possibility that we have no fear heading into this big week of earnings. We could see this pushing on down if those earnings continue to come in strong. If we happen to have some issues or problems here, watch this area of price support. This would be an area where the bears may want to defend here a little bit if the data isn't great. Looking for that little bit of fear spike coming into the market. And I think the possibility could occur that would happen on some of these tech giant reports. Not saying that it will, saying that you want to watch those pretty carefully here coming up in the afternoons this week, and we're piling them in here pretty quickly, so just realize that there is a lot of potential movement that could happen in the market based on the Mag 7. Let's take a look at our T2122. Now, our T2122 is the 4-week new high, new low ratio. I get a lot of questions on this, but it really is a very, very simple indicator. When we are pushing up here toward, and you'll notice it can never go above 100. It can never go below 0 here in the chart. Notice that we're pushing back up here toward this bearish reversal zone. Once we push up into here, we start looking for that possibility of a little bit of pullback in the market. And we've been so relentlessly bullish here in the market. There's no reason to believe we can't push right on up here. We'll want to watch that carefully. If, however, the bears were to come in, just kind of keep in mind that downside risk coming in the market is pretty strong compared to the space we have here to the upside. If we take a look at our T2108, T2108 is the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average. And although we saw that fear dropping on Friday, I want you to notice here that we really didn't do anything here on Friday. Our percentage of stocks above the 50-day did rise ever so slightly. We're rising back up in here into that little resistance that we created in the chart. So keeping in mind, holding above this 50% area, and that 50% area has got some support right in here in the chart. Keep in mind there's resistance up here if the bulls can continue to push. Up here we've got some resistance here in the chart. And then just keeping in mind that if the bears were to come in, pushing back down into here, pushing back up in here, both of them look pretty likely. Just the fact that we didn't have the momentum here in the market that we'd like to see on that, bullishness that we saw on Friday. If we take a look at T2107, T2107 did improve on Friday, pushing up here nicely. So we'll want to keep an eye on this one as well. We do have some resistance above. And remember, when we start reaching up here in this area of 60, and push above 65 an area in here, we are extremely frothy in T2107. And remember, this is the percentage of stocks above the 200-day moving average. So as we push on up, let's watch some of these levels up here carefully, noticing that there are some resistance levels here in the chart to be paying attention to. Anything below down here, don't worry too much about. There are some support levels down around that 50% area here in T2107. Our T2101, whoops, showing us that market breadth. Now, the breadth of the market did increase on Friday, which is interesting because we were so, price action was so insipid. It was very lacking in a lot of energy, a lot of chop in the market. So we'll want to watch this carefully. You'll notice right in here that possibility of that little hook. That little hook may mean that breadth could fall off here a little bit. Now remember, we get through this week and all of those, and a bunch, not all of them, but a bunch of those big tech giants report. We're likely to hear those big tech giants come in with big stock buyback repurchase programs. So remember, we're going with so many companies now reporting this week. We're going to start coming out from underneath that stock buyback period or that blackout period here in the market, where those big companies can start manipulating the market with their own buybacks here, continuing to push us higher. So watch that possibility to occur here very, very soon as we get through a massive number of earnings this week. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here. Now, our economic calendar, we're going to have a rather busy week coming up, but it starts off really quiet here today. Not much going on. We got a Dallas Fed manufacturing survey expected to come in negative. Our manufacturing here in the United States is just in a terrible condition. It's interesting that the market just doesn't care. In the light of just 7 big tech giants that are racing to the upside, that seems to be the only thing that we're concerned about here in the market right now. And manufacturing just doesn't seem to matter at all here. We've got 3 and 6 month bond auctions that will be reporting or going off here today on those bond auctions, unlikely to be of major concern. Now, keep in mind, as we move into Wednesday, we're going to start getting those jobs numbers heading into the first of the month. We've got the Case-Shiller numbers, we've got house price index, we've got consumer confidence, and then we're going to have that job openings report coming in here on Tuesday. Remember, this is the beginning on Tuesday of the FOMC meeting as well. On Wednesday, we kind of catch a lot of things here. As you can see, mortgage applications, ADP numbers will be out. We've got Treasury refunding agreement coming in. We've got employment cost index coming in, Chicago PMI, petroleum status, and then we're going to hit the FOMC meeting with Jerome Powell's press conference after that. So you'll want to be paying pretty close attention to Wednesday. You could see that possibility where the market could just bounce around and hesitate here for a couple of days as we wait on the FOMC. Getting through that, we're going to hit Thursday with some big numbers here. Again, jobless claims, productivity, and costs. We've got a PMI final. We've got ISM numbers coming in, construction spending, natural gas. We've got a Fed balance sheet, and remember, bond auctions throughout the day. And then after we get through that FOMC, just plan on next week, we're going to start seeing a lot of Fed speakers out there yakking it up. So watch that carefully. But into Friday, we're still pretty clean on that accord. We've got motor vehicle sales. We've got employment situation number. That's that big government number at the end of every month we'll want to be watching. Consumer sentiment and factory orders. So that is our week. You'll want to be paying close attention to those. Sorry that was a lot of that was out of the view of the area that I was recording, so I apologize. Keep an eye on that. let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. But one of the things we need to do really quickly is we need to run through some notable earnings reports here. I'm going to go through this really quickly. What I want to recommend is that you click the link just below the title of the video. That'll take you back to the morning blog where you can catch that full list. And just keep in mind, as the week progresses, or the next few weeks, there's a really good chance I can't cover everything that's on the list. In fact, I'm not even going to try to do it today, but I will cover a few here this morning. Taking a look at ARE, that'll be reporting today. We'll hear from CADE here today. We're going to hear from the old Cleveland Cliffs Steel Company. That'll be an interesting one to watch. We've got BEN, Franklin Resources, on that list. We've got Nucor will be reporting. Looks like it's trying to bounce a little bit higher this morning. PCH will be reporting today. We've got SMCI, Supermicro, that will be reporting today. This thing has been racing to the upside, just zooming heading into this earnings report. And last but not least, this morning that I'll talk about is WWD. It is trying to push up heading into its earnings report. So kind of keep an eye on those. And remember, click that link just below the title of the video. That will take you back to the morning blog where you can catch that full notable list. And that's going to be real important as we go through the next couple of weeks. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up. But before we do that, guys, if you could do me that quick favor. If this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click the subscribe button on YouTube and then also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, do me that favor, and that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to continue to grow. Thank you so much to everyone who does take the time to do that. It means the world to me. It truly does. And I truly appreciate it, trying to answer all of those comments. And also, if you feel like sharing this video out on your social media feed, that also helps an awful lot. And just a big shout out to everyone who continues to support the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link. I do truly appreciate that as well. You guys are awesome. You'll find that link also below the title of the video. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You're going to have to do your own due diligence. Be very careful. And in this week, anything is possible. There's a lot of whipping that could go around. And when we're pushing to blue sky highs in the market, you always have to consider the possibility that we could pump the pre-market and then whipsaw back to the downside. So be careful and be prepared. Have a plan in your trading. Well, first off, let's take a look at something I ran across this weekend. I was just looking at doing my chart look. EWH, I put an alert on this. This thing is really gappy. This is the Hong Kong fund ETF. And that's one of the reasons why it's really gappy. But I think it's notable to see how we've pushed up here and we're resting against some resistance in the chart. Now, keeping in mind the longer term downtrend here still has some work to be done on that. But EWH could be trying to show a little bit of bullishness and come on up here in the market. Might be something worth paying attention to. FXI is another one. You'll notice that we're pushing up here off of this really big low. All of that stimulus that China is putting out here, trying to move us back up. You want to keep in mind that we're still in a major downtrend, but this is a pretty interesting support. If we can push up and hold a higher low, then maybe there may be some opportunities in there if you have an interest in something like that. You might also want to be taking a look at XLI ETF in here. As you can see, industrial's been moving up pretty nicely, holding into a consolidation area right here, setting up pretty nicely for that next upside opportunity. Now, where that will be, I don't know. We'll want to keep an eye eye on this. It also has that resistance there that we have to respect. So I would watch this carefully in here for that next opportunity to the upside. And here in TC2000, I can click one link, as you can see, and I can get over here really quick, and I can find the stocks that's moving XLI really easily. Take a look at like CTAS, beautiful little bullish candle there on Friday, pushing through some resistance. So there are a lot of stocks in here that may be of interest. American Airlines pushing through resistance, big popping move, pulling back, and now you can see this morning it's trying to move higher. So a little bit of rest or consolidation along with support would certainly help a potential entry into that stock. So watch that closely. And of course, if you look at AAL, you might as well look at the rest of the airlines. There are several of them that could be setting up here in the market. So keep an eye on that. There's quite a bit going on in that sector of the market. I would watch that one closely. Other than that, let's take a look at some of the things going on in individual stocks. Take a look at DOCU. DOCU, nice little resting pattern here in the market, continuing to set up here. I think you notice I've placed this entire pink line there is an alert in the chart, looking for that maybe pop through this area. And I got to tell you, anybody that's interested in a longer term trade, this was brought to my attention by one of the members of RWL. Beautiful potential set up here for that longer term. If this can hold and pop through here, well, I can see some pretty big upside opportunity coming in DOCU if those bulls continue to find inspiration. So I would watch carefully on that chart for that opportunity. Now, if we take a look at CTLT pushing through some, oops, that's a weekly, sorry, pushing through that resistance here in the chart. As you can see, nice little push through here on Friday on my price alert. Any rest or pullback here would set up additional opportunity. Be careful chasing something like this because of that stretch, but watch that carefully. Any kind of resting pattern. Notice how we're respecting this trend. And remember, guys, we can just continue to exploit a trend like this over and over and over, looking for those bullish patterns as they're setting up. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to predict it. Just follow that through. And as a matter of fact, this morning I'm going to put out another quick video, and if anyone is interested, make sure you watch carefully for that video that will be coming out after this one. But something I want to talk about here just a little bit this morning. It'll be a very brief video, so watch that closely. CTLT looking pretty good. If we take a look at Shop trying to push up here this morning. Nice little resting pattern, consolidating pattern above a support. I think this is really worth keeping an eye on. Any kind of bullish push that pops us up out of that. Notice if we move right through here, we're right there near our trend here in the chart. Now this is going to report on 213, so keep that in mind, but watch for that opportunity that could pop on through and rally toward those earnings. And there's quite a few stocks, as you can see, here in the market. That DOCU, CCJ has been pulling back, resting in this consolidating pattern. I think this will be really dependent on what happens with the dollar and how our bonds react here over the next few days. So watch that closely. A lot of these commodity stocks have been seeing, well, particularly in uranium, because we're seeing uranium supplies dwindling. There's such a demand for it right now. So watch that carefully in here for that resting pattern. If that can hold, then we may still move to the upside here in that one. UEC is another one. Started to pop and go early, pulling back here, as you can see, maybe going to consolidate into this trend and then look for that next opportunity to the upside in there. And again, this is really going to depend on what happens with our dollar. Really quickly here, because I am running out of time, there are quite a few others like Mondelez that broke that alert right in here, pushing on higher, moving up strongly. Little rest or pullback in here might be an opportunity. I still think MDT MDT is worth keeping an eye on. Had some volatility in here, but notice we've popped back up into that resistance area of the chart. Keep an eye here on MDT for that opportunity for a push through. Micron is also seeing quite a lot of bit of volatility in here, but you'll want to notice we're pressing up against this resistance in the chart. We've been consolidating in kind of wide choppy manner out here, but notice we're coming into that area where we could consolidate this move, tighten it up, and then that opportunity that we could push on through in that chart. So, and then one last in international paper, particularly on the weekly, I like the way this is pushing up here, but boy, when I take this to a weekly, look at that right there, guys, break of the downtrend, holding some support in that chart. Now it's going to report on 2-1. That's certainly a complication here to be paying attention, but watch that carefully in here as we continue to rest out toward this trend. International paper continues to set up very nicely for a longer term potential trade. So with that, everyone, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. And once again, just a reminder, I'm going to put out another quick video this morning. Y'all take care, be safe, have a great day, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. Wish you all the very best.